St. Paul, in canonically his second letter to the Corinthians, which, as I said, the last 2 days would have been actually his fourth letter. The other two we don't have in our scripture. Again, is trying to come back these special groups of missionaries. St. Paul calls them, kind of like in a mocking way, these super apostles. That they're in the Corinthian community and they're really downplaying, they're really putting him down to the Corinthians. And I would say mainly their main reason behind that is the Corinthians is a very wealthy community, very successful, very powerful, and a community that has lots of pleasures and comforts. And St. Paul comes in and starts bragging about the cross, which is, again, to the Corinthians and anybody in the ancient world, nothing to brag about. It's probably one of the worst forms of execution, and on top of that, something that was also very humiliating to the individual. The Romans loved to use it to show the rest of the people, hey, don't mess with us. This is what will happen to you. You'll be humiliated, disgraced, and put to death. And here St. Paul says, hey, if I go boast anything, I boast in the cross of Jesus Christ. And so that takes us into our first reading, and we're continuing on in chapter 3, where now we hear a lot of images of veils and veils being removed. Okay, what's going on here? Well, whenever Moses encountered God, the glory of God would shine so much that Moses would have to wear a veil. Okay, so it's different than being here in Frackville. I know a lot of you ask me to wear a veil, but it has nothing to do with the glory of God, okay? All right, nothing to do with that. But God's glory was so overwhelming that Moses had to wear a veil to protect the people. The glory of God in the new covenant in Jesus Christ shines forth. And I think most of you know the answer. Where does the glory of God shine? It shines on Good Friday. In the cross is the glorification of God. Now, in Jesus being humiliated, suffering, and death, God's glory, God's love is shining forth to the rest of the world, and all can gaze upon it with unveiled faces. And then St. Paul says, when we turn to Christ, when we meditate on him and we meditate on the cross, the veil is removed, and freedom, because of the Spirit that he pours forth from the cross, freedom is given. How is freedom given in that moment? Well, freedom from two things. First of all, freedom of death, because as we meditate on the cross and on the sufferings of God done for us out of love, we realize also that there's the resurrection attached to that. We meditate on Good Friday because most of us in our lives are at Good Friday right now. We're not at Easter Sunday. We'll get there, but we're not there yet. We bring all of our sufferings. We look upon the suffering of Christ, all of our emotional, mental ailments, all of our physical ailments and pains. We look at them, meditate, and turn to the crucified Christ. And we say, you know what? Death is not the end of this story. And it's not the end of our story of our life. And if you truly believe it, you will be granted freedom over death. Death will not have its power of enslavement over us. Because our faith in the love of God tells us that there's more. And the same thing, freedom over sin. Sin weighs us down. Sin strikes at the conscience. But with all that, when we meditate on the cross, we see also what? Not only the victory over death, but we see also the victory over sin. There, the sacrificial offering, the sin offering has been made by a priest, a great priest who knows no sin himself, and a great priest, a great high priest that is risen from the dead and lives forever and is in the true sanctuary at the right hand of God. We see the priest there, and we see also the victim, which happens to be the same person. Not a lamb, not a goat, not a cereal offering. But the offering given to God is is the blood of Christ, the fully human but also fully divine blood of Christ offered to the Father. And so again, if you truly meditate on it, let it sink into your hearts, you see victory over sin. Sin doesn't have to weigh us down anymore. There is the sin offering. There is the forgiveness of God. And that's why St. Paul is telling these Corinthians in the second reading and continuing through the letter that he preaches the true gospel of Jesus Christ. The true gospel is not comforts and pleasures and an easy life. The true cross, the true gospel message is entrance into the divinity, into the Trinity, entrance into God, and that's done so through offering up our lives and united as a sacrifice to Jesus Christ on the cross. And for for Paul, that's why the cross is worth of boasting. May God bless you.